The third set of Ambassador Crick-Gerstal's appendages trembled with his assurance. He was righteously outraged, and certainly not alarmed, as he spoke to the crystalline galactic council. The light was captured by the exoskeleton from the lighting panels in the rooms, sending refractions of rainbows throughout the gathered members. The faces of the delegates, or whatever was used as faces of the various species that are their respected council members, he started. His translation matrix is having difficulty. Betrayed the appropriate amount of horror in hiss. I have to get the harmonics back to your focus on the progressively regarding our human behavior, co-workers. He was able to identify as though it was an especially unsettling communicative conversation I first heard. Excellent, Mark V. Sensen. The council is connected to Earth's military. Didn't even attempt to conceal her eye roll. Took a long, thoughtful drink of her preserving a boiling coffee mug. Make direct eye contact with the ambassador. The incident resulted in many close-up pictures that Cynthia took, edging their curling leaves and floating pods away in distress upon seeing someone voluntarily eating what their species categorized as industrial yesterday, ADZT tall, remained solvent. His crystal structure is currently vibrating at what some would consider the peak Karen frequency. That I saw was no less than 12 people doing what they call calisthenics in the morning in the common recreation area of the embassy, where they are. He paused for dramatic effect while inspiring. Permitting the collective scream of fear to ripple through the chamber, she whispered to herself, biological processes. She looked at her data pad, revealing the present human personnel's betting pool on what the complaint for this week would be regarding their, at the moment, species exercise was profitable out at 31 odds in addition to the voice of the ambassador rose in October. They have started importing more amounts of the substance they call, I need to remind the council about ghost peppers, that these veggies are classified as standard toxicity of chemical lieutenant. Lieutenant James, the gallery's scanners, a ghost, was meticulously hidden by Reaper Ali behind his pepper-infused protein bar hand and took a big bite, which resulted in the floating gaseous intelligence delegate beside him to momentarily lose shock-induced molecular cohesiveness. And let us remember that GHTL was constructing to his crystal segments are now crescendo, essentially dancing with agitation. Their steadfast efforts to introduce the concept of game night to do you think cross-species cultural interactions understand what they recommended last week. Twister is a physicaldevice.com competition that includes purposefully limbs being entangled with other participants, the exact recommendation that was sent. However, 3 arachnoid delegates are molting. Rodriguez crossed early in the season's 3 cycles. Her legs became more ingrained in her chair, writing something in her data pad Jenga night. Unquestionably still in place. For the council chair on Thursday was an enormous number of semi-sentient plasma enclosed in a field pulsed in the potential ambassadors who care for you while you're there. Our worries that people have being, they are technically within their rights based on the display of cultural provisions of the Galactic Charter. Nevertheless, they have a very tactile approach to things. In fact, ZL's translator squeaked. I saw one of them open yesterday, a nutritional pouch that includes their teeth, as if they were. The package was vacuumed by the primitive predator, Toes Rodriguez, provided a useful, and Lieutenant Chen's poll tab broke off, has already sent in the relevant forms for inappropriate packaging and, as required in triplicate. Another is 247P subsection Gamma, Chiel's planet. To command Lieutenant to his crystals. They read, chiming in agitation and adhere to all of the rules. No species is that which is unnatural, comprehensive, unless they have a plan. Something made Rodriguez smile sweetly and drinking more of her promise you coffee, Ambassador, that we humans are merely making every effort to serve as models, and galactic folks, please pardon me. I think it's time for me to have my afternoon intimate pouring session with a high level of intensity. I don't want to be late for anything, being yet another one of our unsettling behaviors. As she got up to go, I'm sure she hesitated. Oh, and that coffee, Ambassador, this is decaf and you're so worried about it. You'll have to see what occurs when we drink the genuine thing and listen to the sound of a little split in the crystal under stress. Accompanied her as she left the room, with the clear sense that numerous species were in dire need of upgrading. Their procedures for assessing threats, just another typical day in galactic. The emergency alert for politics blared through the chambers of the Galactic Council. Precisely 4 hours, 17 minutes and 32 minutes moments following Ambassador Zhou Tong's presentation about people. The timing of barbarism was so ideal that several delegates accused people who staged it till they understood that it would require providing people with praise for being even more crafty, more capable than initially thought. Members of the Attention Council, the AI's calming voice somehow succeeded in making imminent catastrophe that sounds like an SP Lothar civilian transport appointment. The ship Stella Serenity is now on board. Through Crimson Claw Pirates Consortium, they are requesting instant diplomatic contact. As customary, the boat will be painted in the same color scheme as the Capt and Commander Rodriguez, who had negotiated, just got back from her workout, resulting in a crystal final with several unknown Corinthians, and assigned to examine her datapad faintly and struggled to keep a smile from thriving. The passenger manifest for Stellar Serenity comprised 15 people coming back from a team construction exercise, which was accurate in theory if you included training in special operations. His team building, this is clearly a case that calls for the ambassador's tactful diplomatic handling. Tall declared that his crystals were vibrating, itself crucial frequency, that we need to establish a committee to talk on the establishment of a task team to set guidelines for bargaining. Rodriguez, for heaven's sake, has protocols. Whispered, then raised, or we may simply stop. As a result, the council chamber collapsed. Quiet. Even the surrounding light seems to dim in terror. Take care of it, Tals, the idea, was difficult for translators to grasp. However, they are armed pirates, and Rodriguez demanded, as he stretched in a method that caused her joints to start popping dangerously. Many delegates flinched. And you know what? You're entirely correct, Ambassador. You should survive appropriately to this. She was tapped. Please, Community Lieutenant O'Malley, give me access to Stella Serenity and let's bargain. The main screen shifted to the life of a Varian pirate with a scar. 15 people sat behind the captain, on the floor, cross-legged, searching for lifeboard school kids everywhere. At a gathering, one was genuinely performing salutations to counsel the pirate. Growled, yes, hi Rodriguez. We demanded, disrupted, leading multiple diplomats to, in terror, clutch their protocol manuals. Listen, I have a legal obligation to provide you with an opportunity to give up the standard delta U, Regulation 394C, subsection, understand how the pirate blinked all. The 4 eyes give up. We have what we have. Weapons. So the answer is either yes or no, since a protein shake is waiting for me, and it seems strange if it remains in the background of a human captive. Commander, if they say no, he raises his hand. Does that formally signify our release from the best to quote me chance? I'm sorry, I couldn't help but chuckle. It's a procedure for a personal matter. Like some ancient human's body hits the ground, the war anthem that has in some way been categorized as a song of worship and life, why sure, Lieutenant. An infringement lawsuit, it would be the people on film chant excited as if they were being told Christmas was arriving early. One of them broke her da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Another knuckle began to categorize a song of worship in the galaxy archives. What is appropriate conduct? Protocol. The pirate captain inquired what his weaknesses might be. He seemed less assured about his existence than I feel. He displayed our full strength through the use of our surroundings' adaptability for illustrating the reasons Earth is categorized as a planet of death. But since you're not she made a show because she was interested in diplomacy. I should note that I checked her watch, that these were fine. Approximately 20 minutes ago. People would have spent their afternoon drinking coffee that isn't military grade. Decaf nonsense, so you're actually harming us. A favor, are you aware of how difficult it is to locate a suitable outlet for anything that Caffey displays in vitality? Is one of the hostages started using one-armed bounds. Another was describing push-ups. To utterly perplexed junior pirate, the parkour's idea and the reasons that artificial intelligence is a pretend not matter upsets private memories. Gravity was really a relative term, which had begun with a would you believe Rodriguez's suggestion, carried on discussing things that weren't even permitted to show how people can make use of seemingly innocuous items as weapons are regarded as unsettling. In other words, Lieutenant Chen was once restrained using a paperclip and a rogue combat droid and an elastic band, but that was only in Chen cheerfully waving in self-defense at the juvenile pirate who had been captured on camera. Speaking with took a significant step back, so Rodriguez put her hands behind her back in class. What will it be like to surrender her back? Do my people get to stop now? Acting as though they are unaware of 17 ways to use that coffee machine behind you as a weapon, the pirate captain is being bluffed by you. Stated, but his tone has increased. No species on Octave can be that creative, flexible, and really exhausted of restraining system as you appear to be, Mr. Rodriguez. Proverb. Humans have evolved to be persistent. As predators, we actively pursue our victim until it falls apart. Because these days, we call that weariness cardio, and I appreciate your flawlessness. You've got us at the exact moment. The ideal balance between caffeine consumption and our planned exercise session on screen. One of the people who had started to explain to the outraged pirate, why was CrossFit is genuinely a fairly gentle person. Exercise program. Another was displaying appropriate burpee form merely to Last Chance Rodriguez saying, stay limber, leaving after the pirate captain had taken a peek at his crew, followed by the progressive, vivacious people, then returning to Rodriguez. All of you are crazy, declared to be twice as large as the entire species. It's totally amazing, Rodriguez smiled. Enjoy yourself, everyone, and don't forget to file your action reports, make 3 copies, and attempt this time the ship won't be broken. Insurance documentation is a hassle. The Council's final observation prior to the 15 people was the cutoff point for transmissions. Smiling as they rise in perfect unison. That created a file for multiple predatory species seeking reclassification based on evolution as herbivores, amid the subsequent quiet. Crystals from Ambassador ZHTL added their voices. You can't just be Owen in distress. Rodriguez said with a smile, it's all right. Section 721F of the regulations, paragraph 3, in the case of antagonistic action taken against impacted civilian target species, may react based on their cultural standards that you insisted on encompassing that clause. Ambassador? Something pertaining to cultural preservation. Diversity. She took another look at her watch. Now, if you don't mind, I must begin on the documentation and perhaps place some fixed drones. Anyone up for coffee? I'm awake. She walked out of the council feeling defeated, agreed that maybe, just maybe, they had been examining this. Incorrect. Perhaps the people hadn't been finding it difficult to meet galactic standards of society. Perhaps they'd been keeping themselves from meeting the latest training as reverberatingly incredible. Thanks to Ambassador Zhetal's voice-faint crack of stress reverberated through the chamber. The security feed from the Galactic Council, due to the fact that Tenant Chen had kindly modified the communications array of the ship. During his warm-up stretches, the delegates in attendance watched in growing terror as their concerns about humanity's darkest were not only verified, but in some ways surpassed. The voice of parkour, Lieutenant Chen, reverberated throughout the ship's corridor while he literally pushed off the wall and sprinted up it, ceiling, and gave a pirate a dropkick with all the fast motion. Initially, he only produced methane. I am incredulous. The breathing, delicate bubble pot. Make a recommendation by using fake gravity instead of a law, sure. He did. Commander Rodriguez made a remark from her seat where she was quietly completing an excessive force justification form in You Should See What They Do in triplicate, as though on cue the feed in the Zerg parts moved to Dr. Zhao's Cargo Bay 3. The civilian botanical researcher aboard the ship, whose argument about using plants as weapons was categorized on 17 planets, was showing why people should and should never actually use yourself in some way. She had transformed her whole delivery of extract from ghost peppers into an aerosol weapon, declared to a group of the coughing we refer to pirates as spicing things. She stopped to pick it up because it was, in theory, a spice is not a tough crowd. Ambassador Zedstay in the council chamber. The crystalline shape of Tal was taking form. They are making puns about stress fractures in combat. Rodriguez said that fighting might be done fortunately. They haven't begun quoting action films, but yeah, mommy, yippee Lieutenant Tombell's eagerness. Fortunately, the battle was interrupted by a static, disregarding the change in feed displaying the ship's gym once more, where a number of pirates had made the strategic mistake in attempting to corner Sergeant Jackson's physical training teacher. He was presently utilizing a resistance band in a spontaneous slingshot while describing the appropriate form. See, it all comes down to core engagement, admonished the progressively agitated pirates, which is why we stress appropriate exercise methods that also avoid problems with tactical systems. The shake canister flew by close relational velocity in the Zerg storage system. Patel, the section chief engineer, had changed the inventory management system to deal with 3D chess. However, spiky pirates floated ineffectively as they were led by little robots. Ever more intricate geometric patterns appear on the plus side. She warned her that at the very least. Unwilling participants. The coffee machine is not being used by me. That would be the council looked on in silence, uncivilized. Terror, since Lieutenant Chen is now in some way undefiantly once more. The ceiling started criticizing the pirates' strategic decisions, such as your dissatisfied physics teacher sees your initial error as believing that gravity is required. He clarified in a light-hearted manner, Avoiding plasma bolts is the second error you made. It wasn't taking human cardiovascular staminas. As your third by accident, he took out a tiny bottle. Emergency sriracha smashes the glass label. If the dish is tasteless, don't examine what we categorize as three pirates with condiments right away. They gave up when they saw the bottle. Apparently, they had gotten the information on food for humans in the council room with an appendages. Rodriguez didn't even glance up from this. Oh, you don't know about her paperwork. Do you? Understand how much time they've spent acting, that parkour is only a wasteful method to go about, or that spicy sauce is simply like ordering cats not to eat. Remove items from tabletops, technically feasible but in opposition to their G.R. Zhao was shown the feed's very nature. Holding a spontaneous class on the Scoville scale, as a number of pirates signed agreements for a hasty surrender and kept waiting, this is merely commercial grade. Until I present my research materials to you, Ambassador Zhut sobbed. Make it stop. Oh, it's nearly over, Rodriguez promised. He's looking at her watch as they prepare to turn out of pirates to instruct. That is, despite the fact that they are technically gaining insightful knowledge regarding physiology and capacities in order for it to qualify as a program for cultural exchange. Wait while I check the rules displayed on the screen. Lieutenant Chen has started elucidating the idea of free travel to a severely traumatized person. Wow is another touching thing. I just love her so much and I worry I might kill her before she jumps off that ship. Considering your surroundings to be a playground of options such as this, he went forward to illustrate a maneuver that made several species that rely on physics question their comprehension of insects. In actuality, this is the reason why people started on those particular insurance plans. Reens, someone in the council room, Rodriguez awaited after clerk's proxy. When asked softly, happily, coverage for property damage is crucial when we are permitted to appropriately communicate ourselves when discussing which she took out of another form. Wish to sign this request together? For fixing drones, I believe we ought a mass order the sound of several species asking at the same time for revisions to their diplomatic procedures reverberated across the room. Almost drowning out the distant voice of Lieutenant Al. This is a crime I instructed Sparta to fire the Rodriguez side in historical documentaries. Checking the top cultural box, citations in her report about the galactic, the documentation committee of the council had ceased attempting to classify humans. Combat infractions, and it was now just putting them all in big letters. Throughout their reports in the meantime, the security feed kept on supplying what Commander Rodriguez was now formally categorizing as required cultural awareness. Lieutenant Chen's training command of the ship's communications system and was attending to the whole battle scenario similar to an open mic KN at a Hey Pirates comedy club. What did the time that human say to the gravity generator? He accentuated this in order to pull you down by genuinely turning off the gravity. Please take note of the busy council in Section C, the clerk, noted in fraction 2749. Using humor as a weapon in battle circumstances that caused the pirate to fail his generation. Resume the spaceship examination while using a meal tray as a temporary. Snow brown stomach pain due to the fact that he had too many. There are pirates wandering around in the zero-G environment, powerless. The joke made them groan more loudly than their injuries sustained at the ship's gym. Sergeant Jackson had flipped around the whole thing, jumping into a spontaneous CrossFit session. Everyone is okay. Pirates count. When doing resistance training, keep in mind to keep your form correct while doing it. We don't want any workplaces with hostiles. Is he performing a fitness test? Ambassador Xi's Tall's class during combat is questioned once a week. Yes, Rodriguez answered. Completing unusual use of training equipment. Since then, he has been wishing to upgrade the This is the combat fitness curriculum. This is the combat fitness curriculum. Essentially, the feed is a practical exam moved to the cargo area where Dr. Shao was describing the qualities of the chemicals. Presenting captivity to an audience in captivity, quite physically held captive while being restrained. Using resistance bands is the reason ghost peppers are safe for humans to consume without. Doesn't anyone find dying fascinating? To get a taste of the universal translation. Somehow, Matrix was able to communicate. Several pirates were yelling no in 15 different languages. Concurrently, Chief Engineer Patel had changed the cleaning program, playing the flight of the robots, using their warning beepers, bumblebees. Even if she led them in pain, pirates become more complex, forms that I refer to as surrender. In B minor, she triumphantly declared the violation was added by the documentation committee. 2750 unsuitable musical accompaniment to fight activities in the main corridor Chen was still going strong. Pirates don't play cards because there's usually someone seated on the terrace. Performed a flawless backflip while delivering the line of humor that doesn't even a pirate's cry would make sense in space. Piracy without anti-grav also doesn't train, but now we're here, Chen said. Joyfully, oh, here's another one. Orest is the favorite celestial body of a pirate. The council chamber was packed, droid with a variety of species, face-palming with whatever was used to appendages in their individual anatomy. And Chen, my next trick, declared that I would show why people demanded that those be reinforced. I refer to these ceiling panels as move the falling star. He went ahead and did something that caused a number of physics professors constantly observe the feed. The clerk wrote, Positions violation 2751, then removed it and just wrote, Simply put, physics as a whole. Rodriguez raised her head from her papers, long enough to include, remember to record this as a mixed success. Exercise in species cooperation. The pirates are caused by an unfamiliar fixed problem of the mind, particularly in the specific coincidence that a physical feature caused coincidence of two physical particles, lightning, Jupiter and Saturn, to seem as though they were mixed success. Exercises found only pertaining to the specified, officially participating in human cultural actions that are now being utilized as ZHT exercise equipment, specifically objected to cultural exchange at its best today. Who wishes to assist me with filling out these improv exercises? The responsibility for equipment ignores the sounds of several species. Doubting their life decisions reverberated, hardly passing through the council chamber. Heard over Chen's far away. Why did the Apple product is purchased by a pirate because it required an eye patch in an emergency? Galactic Council session meet again 12 hours following the Stella, the occurrence of Serenity. As it was currently being officially documented under 17 distinct grouping levels, the delegation of humans sat quietly in their typical seats, looking flawless, calm and competent, as though they had not only revised a number of the laws of the commander of combat doctrine and physics. Rodriguez came to the podium with a pile of painstakingly finished documentation that was taller than some of. The fact that the smaller delegation members that it was structured using, in some ways, color-coded tabs made it more frightening for council members. She started her with the exact example of diplomatic moderation. I'm pleased to state that the circumstances have been resolved with little lasting structural issues with the ship. She put the pirates' therapy bills on hold. Is being processed through, of course. The suitable Ambassador J-Tal's channels are now sporting a number of stress repair areas across his minimally damaged crystalline form that jerked minimally, a cargo area where the artificial gravity is now in use. Patel, the chief engineer for Sideways, reassures me, Rodriguez, that's a feature, not a bug, smoothly responded. We're going to call it Creative Spatial Reorganization? If you'd like, the forms are right here. The human delegation had to examine them, reverted to their customary action, and sculpt their report back to you on Monday. They are all in order. We work out the details in the laboratory, and will results show up tomorrow. The parkour exhibition is on display. The number of delegates observed that he had somehow... his chair was set up in a physically unlikely viewpoint. Dr. Zhao was modestly drinking tea while her arsenal of weapons. No sign of grated condiments. Even Sergeant Jackson had donned a formal outfit, doing calf raises without realizing it while keeping an eye on things given the recent announcement of the council chair. When its plasma shape flickers uneasily, we have created a number of new rules. How considerate you are. Rodriguez grinned, we are so in love. The updated regulations were shown. There is no gravity on the main screen. Manipulation for amusement, conditions need to be listed as exercise equipment and possible weapons limited to specific locations only. Dad jokes are prohibited while fighting. Required alignment of gravity in all coffee consumption in ship sections to be observed, and these appear to be nicely regulated. Reasonable Rodriguez concurred, making many delegates were really uneasy, given how easily she embraced the limitations. However, I should note that under the Cultural Protection Act's Section 47 Preservation Act, we still have the right to continue our customary behavior while in specified critical situations. According to custom, someone squeaked, She waved at us. Every day, you know, I said temporarily, respected human customs of artistic addressing issues, being physically fit, and she had a beautiful, full smile and comprehensive records of every activity. She weighed the pile of documentation, of which I am in possession. The filled-out makeshift forms, non-standard gravity for weapon use and cultural exchange, applications. The pirates' actions were extremely instructive regarding their viewpoint on human fighting methods, and of course the necessary insurance claims. The council room was quiet as the consequences struck, because the people hadn't recently defeated the pirates. Therefore, they were preserving flawless regulations. After all, Rodriguez decided that compliance was important. She rearranged her immaculately ironed uniform. Humans are utterly dedicated to preserving diplomatic ties, and in accordance with protocol, she paused. It's simply that appropriate text include parkour and hot sauce weaponized as the human. Several representatives were filed out by the delegation. I thought they might have seen Lieutenant Chen walk up the wall for a moment to recover a stylist that had fallen. But when they looked closer, he was the image of diplomatic sensibility Ambassador Zertal's last. The day's stress fracture was alongside the unique sound of people debating where to submit the documentation for impromptu architectural reinterpretation in the context of conflict. Some claim that you can still hear the resolution dad jokes echoing in that cargo hold, where gravity is constant. Sideways for diplomatic purposes in order to, of course,